next thing I want to mention is in this industry, never, 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 never. There is one exception. Pay by the hour. When you pay by the hour, you will never get these guys out of first gear. And the problem with paying by the hour is if they do something wrong, you got to pay them to tear it down and you got to pay them to rebuild it. When you're paying by the job, you can be tough. That's wrong. Tear it down and rebuild it. I'm not going to pay you. And they tear it down and rebuild it on their time, not yours. Never pay by the hour. Never. The one exception to this is that if you're getting prices and your common sense is telling you you're getting ripped off, you may want to pay by the hour. I know at one time I was going to install some pipe in the ground. I was going to furnish the pipe. I just wanted a plumber to dig a trench and put the pipe down. The plumber was quoting me prices that were out of sight. My common sense was telling me it should not cost that much to dig a trench and put that pipe in the ground. So I asked the plumber what he would charge me per hour. And he quoted me what I thought was a fair price. Now, rule number one, I watched him. You always got to watch them if you're paying by the hour or have somebody of yours there watching them. That's rule number one. So rule number one, I watched him and he came very close to my guesstimated time and I saved a significant amount of money. However, I will tell you, I've done that and lost money. I remember a painter one time. I thought it would just take him so long to paint a room, and I paid him by the hour, and it took him about 10 times longer than I had guesstimated, and I lost money on that situation. So it's not foolproof. But again, if you think you're getting ripped off, then you may want to pay by the hour to see if you can beat it. If that's not the case, never, never, never pay by the hour. Another thing I want to mention here, because we've got some remodelers that are taking this program, is I will never give people money up front. You know, you'll have subs, especially in remodeling, they want some kind of deposit or retainer up front. Absolutely no way. I mean, 95% of the time, you will never see them again. That is just crazy. Now, use a little common sense, because there's going to be some places where custom cabinets, you would understand they don't want to start building custom cabinets without having a deposit. That's understandable. But for the most part, you never pay money up front. So I will have a sub come to me, let's say a painter. They'll come to me and they'll say, Tom, you want me to do the job? My price is good, and I need money to go buy the paint. So will you give me a check now? Absolutely not. I'll go to the paint store. I'll open an account, let them charge it on my account, or I'll go to the paint store. I'll pay the paint store with the understanding they'll deliver the paint to the job site. But I will not give a check directly to the sub. You're opening a can of worms for a lot of problems. Don't do that. Just about every major argument you're going to have in this industry is going to be over money. And you can turn this raging ocean of a problem into a little old duck pond if you'll just get in the habit of putting everything down in writing. And I don't care if you have to just take a piece of paper towel. You take that piece of paper towel, you write something down in writing about the price, and you have the sub sign it. And you put that piece of paper towel in a safe place, because you'll be amazed at how many times they'll come up on Friday and say, now, wait a minute, we agreed on such and such a price. And once they say it, they believe it. And if you can pull out your piece of paper towel and say, now, John, here's where you said this and you signed it. Oh, y'all leave friends forever. You don't have that little piece of paper towel, and you have a major battle on your hands. I remember years ago, I needed some concrete work completed on a job, and the person that was supposed to do it couldn't show up at the last minute. And I called around and I got this guy, and he hustled out there, and we were running around like a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off. And you know, I knew better. I should have just talked about the total price, what he was going to charge, but we didn't come up with anything firm, and we were hustling around, got material out there. He did the job, and when all the dust settled, I was expecting to get an invoice for about $1,500. He gave me an invoice for about $3,000. And I told the sub, I said, listen, we got a little problem here. Let me go back. And I went back and checked over all my figures. My price was fair. I checked with what other subs charged. My price was fair. Now, if he thought he was worth double what I would have normally paid, you know, I won't deny that, but I'm not gonna pay it. So trying to be as fair and benevolent as I could be, you know, I came back and I told the sub, listen, and I explained everything, and I said, listen, you know, I could have gotten it done for $1,500, but just to be fair, because we didn't really talk about it, I'm going to pay you $2,000. Oh, he had a fit. He would not take the $2,000. I said, well, if you want more than $2,000, I'm not going to pay you, and you're going to have to lien the job and sue me. And he stormed off, fussed and fumed for several days, called me up and agreed to take the $2,000. You know, if I had stopped up front for about 10 minutes and said, listen, everybody else would do this for $1,500 with you, I guarantee you he would have done it. But no, for lack of 15 minutes and a piece of scratch paper, I paid the man $2,000, and he's out running around telling everybody I'm a crook. Don't forget that piece of scratch paper. It is very, very important. And you know, the bottom line on this that I want you to understand is that piece of scratch paper actually goes further to help the sub than it does you. Because you're controlling the checkbook, and we play by the golden rule, and that is he who has the gold makes the rules. No one can force you to write that check. So if you were just a blatant crook, you could just say, hey, I don't owe you any money. Now, that's a dangerous position to take, but you could do it. What the piece of scratch paper is going to do is it's going to stop all the brain damage on payday, where you have all these arguments over money. That's why I want it, is to stop the brain damage. But it goes further to protect the sub's interest in some ways than it does yours, because you're controlling the checkbook. At 24/7, you're going to see some real simple agreements that you can use. Unlike commercial work, where the contracts can be pretty sophisticated, sometimes you almost need an attorney to read them and understand them. If you pull out a contract like that in residential construction, some of these subs won't work for you. They think you're trying to beat them out of money. But there are some things that I do want to stress that you include in your contracts. For example, if you're dealing with a plumber, I want you to put down manufacturer, model numbers, and colors of items you want, such as toilets. Don't assume the plumber's going to bid on or install the toilet like you really want. You want to specify what you want. And I want you to have, like with the electrician, unit prices, like for how much they charge per light, per outlet. So if you add or subtract to the quantity, you'll know how much you're going to be charged. But you do want the electrician or whoever to list quantities. But even though they'll list quantities, I also want you to have what they charge per unit price. Now, telling you their unit prices or telling you their square foot prices, that's okay. But the main thing I want you to get is a bottom line price as many times as you can. A bottom line price. Because you may have a carpenter that'll come up and tell you that he'll charge you so much a square foot to frame your home. And his price may be cheaper than all the other carpenters that you're aware of. So get with that carpenter, and let me tell you, it's like pulling teeth. You just have to pull this information out of them. So you get with the carpenter, you say, okay, I got this many square feet, so much a square foot. So all I owe you is this right here, correct? And the carpenter may come back and say, oh, well, no, wait a minute. I'm going to charge you extra for that bay window. Okay, bay window. So now that's all I owe you, correct? Well, no, I'm going to charge you extra for that chimney chase. And he'll throw all these extras in there. Now, you may have to just pull it out of that carpenter, for example, but you're not going to have to pull it out on payday. On payday, they're real quick to tell you all the little extras that y'all didn't talk about. So with every single sub, as much as you can, come up with a bottom line price. This is especially true with carpet suppliers. I've seen carpet suppliers that were charging more per square foot for carpet, yet be cheaper on the bottom line because of the way they calculated the quantities. Two very important questions I want you to get in the habit of asking every sub. As long as you keep building, keep asking this question, always. Ask the sub, is there anything your price does not include? I remember learning this before I did my first commercial job. And I tell you what, it saved me. It saved me because the subs would come back and say, well, my price doesn't include this or this. And I think, oh, gosh, I'm glad you told me that because I thought it did. And I had to get a price for that. So always ask, what does your price not include? The next thing I want you to ask the sub, if this were your home, is there anything you would do that we haven't talked about? Let me tell you, you're going to get a PhD in construction by asking this question. You're going to see where you can spend a nickel and go first class, where you can spend $100 and save $1,000 by asking that question. Now, don't let them sell you a bill of goods. I mean, they may tell you something and you got to use a little common sense and say, well, that sounds pretty good, but I don't want to do it on my home. But I'm telling you, I dare say most of their suggestions I go along with. And they don't normally tell this stuff because most builders are so, hard-headed. They just want to do it their way. They don't care about what the sub thinks. But you're going to learn about the latest, greatest products out there or ways of doing things. And I tell you, this is a great question to ask, and it has saved me on many jobs and just made jobs so much easier. If this were your home, is there anything you would do we haven't talked about? Always ask that question. One thing I want you to put in your written agreement and state it in writing. You never surprise a sub with this on payday. You stress in writing that all the subs must clean up their own mess. I dare say that entire families have been lost forever, never to be found again in the debris on a construction site. Your subs will take more pride in their work. Your job will go smoother if you'll mandate that all your subs clean up their own mess. And again, you must put that in writing. Don't surprise them with that on payday. And most of your subs, they have, cheaper labor. They can, clean up. And if they came back and said, well, I'm going to have to charge you extra, that's fine. Let's come up with a fair price. But I want you to clean up your mess. And they got to get in there in most cases and sweep the home out. Doesn't have to be pristine clean, but just a good sweep out. And you'll find out when we build the home, things that you may save and not throw away. But your job will go so much smoother. Your subs will take so much pride in their work. When a sub shows up on a junky job site, you will notice they will do junky work. If they show up on a nice, clean job site, they will do nice, clean work. It's psychological. Very important if you become a builder. You want customers to see a clean job site because they think being clean means better quality. Your home may not be any better than anybody else, but the consumer doesn't realize that. I had a student named Esther. You probably saw her at the testimonial at the website. Esther was tough as nails. I remember walking up on a job site and she had a big sign up there, "I'm not your mama, pick up your trash." I just laughed because that just summed up how tough Esther was. Boy, she was tough. She did a great job building her beautiful dream home. And you need to be tough in this area. I will say, now some of your subs, if they want to keep trash around them while they're working, I can live with that. But when they finish their job, I want them to clean up their trash. Now, bear in mind, they don't have to haul it off. You don't want them to do that. They're not going to want to do that. You're going to have a designated area where they'll pile their trash, or a container where they need to put all their trash. Again, at 24/7, you're going to see a sample form you can use to deal with your subs. There's a couple of things that I want you to have on this form. One is the terms of payment. When you and a sub agree upon a price, preferably a bottom line price, the big concern for the sub is how and when they're going to be paid. Until they know how and when they're going to be paid, they don't work at full speed because they're concerned about how and when they're going to get their money. So you clarify to the best of your ability up front, preferably in writing, this is how and when I'm going to pay you. Now their mind is crystal clear to move forward with the construction of your home. If you're going to mandate that they have workers' compensation and general liability insurance, get that in writing. They will be supplying you with that certificate of insurance that you will verify with the insurance company that it is current and it's active. It hasn't been canceled. If they do not have workers' comp and general liability, then state in writing how much you're going to deduct from their pay to include them on your blanket policy. This needs to be in writing. Never surprise them on payday with this. One last item, just for information's sake, if you become a professional builder, you need to be concerned with this, and that is these subs are not your employees. You pay them by the job. And you're supposed to, by law, file with anybody you pay $600 or more to over a year. They could be several checks, but if they total $600 or more, you're supposed to file with the Internal Revenue Service a Form 1099 giving the name, address, and social security number and the amount of money you paid that sub. Just for information, and I don't think the law has changed on this, if you're dealing with a corporation, you don't have to file a 1099 if the sub is incorporated. Also, if you're building your own home, the last I heard is you're not required to file a Form 1099. So that's the good news. If you stay in the industry and become a professional builder, this is something that you need to be concerned with, because if they come in and check and see that you didn't file the 1099, they could hold you liable for any taxes that sub didn't pay. And that could be a real problem. One thing I want to discuss that will clear up some problems for you is the value of keeping all your agreements. Now, this is true in every area of life, but especially in the construction industry, in that if you keep all your agreements with your subs, it makes it very easy to stand there on payday and not be self-righteous. No, you don't want to be that. But it makes it very easy for you to stand there and look at that sub eyeball to eyeball and say, now listen, John, I did everything I said I would do. Now you must do everything you said you were going to do, or I'm not going to pay you. But if you don't keep all your agreements with your subs, if you show up late, if you just don't do everything you said you would do, then don't get so bent out of shape on payday when it turns out they don't do everything they said they were going to do. So I repeat, if you will get in the habit of doing everything that you tell a sub you will do, then it makes it real easy on payday to stand there and remind them that I did everything I said I would do. Now you must do everything you would do, or I am not going to pay you. Keep your agreements. Okay, how to verify you have a good sub. The first thing I want you to do is get 3 bids. If you do not get 3 bids, you are not going to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So get at least 3 bids to learn this industry. I know I had a commercial job one time that even though it was a steel structure, we had a certain amount of wood carpentry on it. And from my experience, I felt like the wood part would cost about $20,000. I got 3 bids. One carpenter bid about $20,000, and that's the carpenter I worked with. Another carpenter bid $29,000, $9,000 difference. Now get this, the third carpenter bid $141,000. Good night. You know, if I not known what fair prices were, and I got 3 bids like this, I would have gotten 20 bids to figure out what's going on. Because you're going to see the prices in this industry go from A to Z. It's unbelievable. But get at least 3 bids. The sub that you choose, I want you to get at least 3 references. And you need to call all 3 references. I've called 3 references before, and they'd say, he's terrible. I'd never use him. I guess the sub didn't think I'd ever going to call him. And the references need to be current. Current being within the last 6 months, not somebody they worked for 2 years ago. Because see, a lot of these subs, they're like all of us. They get burned out. I've seen good carpenters that are great, and then one day they just snap and they get burned out, and they're just not that good anymore. And so I want current references. Also, some of these subs are only as good as their employees, and if they lose their employees, they may not be so good anymore. And I recommend that you go look at some of their work. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What looks good to someone you call up as a reference may not look good to you. So go look at some of their work. And even though you don't even know what you're looking at because you're brand new with no experience, your eye will tell you whether it's neat quality work or junk just by looking at it. Also verify that a sub did a job. I had a mason one time that he talked about a big house down on the corner that he did the brickwork on. And when I started checking, I found out he did not do the brickwork on that house. I walked up on a job site one day. I was building these townhomes, and there was a guy there, and I kind of asked him who he was. I didn't have on my normal builder attire. And he says, oh, I'm the carpenter that built these staircases in there. And I said, oh, really? You don't look like the man I hired to do it. He didn't realize I was a builder. So verify a sub did a job. Also verify that a sub that you're hiring is going to be the one on the job. I have waited on who I considered were very good subs because I wanted them to do a particular job, only to find out when a sub showed up to do the job, the sub I hired subbed it out to another sub. And that's not who I wanted. So I'll look at a sub and say, listen, I'm hiring you. Are you going to be on the job? Not somebody else. Don't assume that. The next item I want to discuss is partnerships. Any potential partnerships that are listening to this, such as husband and wife teams. You need to draw straws, and whoever gets the longer or shorter straw will be the designated boss on the job. If you want to create total mass hysteria on a job site, have more than one boss on a job site. It does not work. It's even in the scriptures, man cannot serve two masters. So you need to draw straws. Whoever gets the longer or shorter straw is a designated boss on the job. Any disagreements you have, you handle them away from the job, away from the subs, so they don't see this disagreement. I know years ago I was doing a commercial job, and my time was really spread pretty thin, and I needed some superintendent help, but I didn't have money in my budget for a full, a really professional superintendent. And I hired this young man. He was only 19 years old, but he'd been around construction for much of his life. He had a lot of common sense, and I could tell him what I wanted and he would do it. And I put him on this commercial job, and I tell you what, these other subs were looking at him like, who is this kid? He's the boss? Yeah, right. However, I gave Lee full authority to hire, to fire, but I mainly wanted him to do what I said. And any disagreements we had, and we had a number of them, I handled it away from the job so the other guys couldn't see our, arguing back and forth. And I tell you what, in a short period of time, he took the bull by the horns and he was in charge, and those subs knew it, and they listened to him and they respect him. So that is very important. So you partnerships, be aware of that. Keeping your subs on schedule. Along this same line, there's three keys. There are three basic keys that I want to tell you that just eliminate all the problems with dealing with subs. And I have no idea what those three keys are. And one area is like keeping them on schedule. If you find out a slam dunk solution to this, please contact me and let me know. But I will pass on a few things to you that will help. Tell all your subs that the day they finish, or the day they get their inspection, if they're due an inspection, but the day they finish, you don't care if it's Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Wednesday evening, you will pay them that day, and you will pay them in cash money. You have just waved the magic wand in this industry. To pay them the day that they finish is great. But to pay them the day that they finish in cash money, you will not believe the results. This even works for your major subs. They'll leave a skeleton crew with Big Builder and haul everybody over to your home because you pay the day they finish in cash. And by the way, these subs that work for big builders, I want you to understand they still enjoy working for you, just building one home. Because first of all, they can normally be paid sooner. Some of these big builders make them wait on their money. And they can normally charge you a little more money. Some of these big builders get them pretty cheap. So they enjoy working for you. And I will be honest, they do have loyalty to big builder. But if you do something like this, pay them the day that they finish in cash money, hey, they will leave a skeleton crew with Big Builder and be over at your job. Now, here's how you do it. Write them a check and give them a check. But now, instead of making them go to the a bank or a check cashing store to cash it, tell them to turn it over and endorse it, and you cash it for them. Now, be careful in handling cash like this. You may want to meet them in a public place because you want to be careful about carrying cash like this, but you work that out. So the sub got paid the day he finished, and he got paid in cash money. Now take that check and don't put it in your desk drawer. Deposit that check in your checking account. So you're depositing that check, that endorsed check, into the same account it's drawn on. and it will go through the bank cycle. It will show up on your bank statement. You have a record of paying the sub and he got paid the day he finished in cash. Now, one thing I want to tell you, you must have enough money in your checking account to cash that check. Because if you don't have enough money in your checking account to cash that check, they will bounce it insufficient funds. Because what's going to happen is the computer will deposit that check in your checking account, and it will verify there's funds to clear that check in your checking account, and it goes through a cycle and shows up on your bank statement. If you don't have enough funds to cover that check for that split second, it will bounce it insufficient funds. Now, if you'll think about what's happening here, you'll figure it out. And if you go into a bank and the teller says, well, wait a minute, we can't deposit this because this is the account it's drawn on. You can't deposit this check into the same account. Yes, you can. Just the teller just isn't aware of it. Talk to one of the managers there and they'll clear up everything. Yeah, you can do it. Just tell them why you're doing it. You want to have a record if I haven't paid this up. No big deal. I will mention many, I dare say most subs, if you pay them in cash money, they will even give you an additional discount of usually at least 10%, maybe even more, if you pay them in cash money. So always ask for an additional discount if you pay them in cash. Let's assume you're going to hire a roofer on a given Monday, and the Monday before the roofer is due, so a week before the roofer is due, y'all come up that he's going to do the job, you agree on a price, and that's it. Well, if you wait until Saturday or Sunday to call that roofer back, more times than not, he's behind schedule and won't be there till Thursday or Friday. It's not so much that he's behind schedule, he's put somebody in front of you. So do this. You come up with an agreement on Monday for a roofer to show up the next Monday. Okay, Wednesday, you call the roofer up. We're on schedule. You going to be there? Friday, you call the roofer up. We're on schedule. You going to be there? Saturday, you call the roofer up. We're on schedule. You going to be there? Sunday, you call the roofer up. We're on schedule. You're going to be there? By Monday morning, that roofer is like this. Where is that home? He'll go by there on Sunday with his family and say, I got to be there tomorrow and roof that home. In this industry, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the oil. And let me tell you, that is a job. That is a job. And if you're not willing to do that job, you can take your normal construction time period and you could just about double it. I know I had a student named Lillian Huber that built a large home in North Atlanta, and she built it in about 4 months. And I tell you, the bulk of Lillian's success was this right here. I bet she worried those guys to death. I bet they couldn't wait to get rid of that woman. I know when the phone rang, they probably thought, oh God, that's Miss Huber. Fortunately, most subs have cell phones now. You can reach the sub direct. But even if you have to call their home, you know, their wife's tired of hearing from you. They'll build a fire under it. Now, you're going to have to learn a little sub psychology. There's going to be a line there you'll skirt around, but you don't want to cross. If you become too much of a royal pain, the sub will just say, forget it, I'm not coming, I don't want to work with you. So you'll kind of know when you're skirting around that point. But this is very important on keeping them on schedule. And if you're not on schedule, you better tell them. But the squeaky wheel gets the oil. If there's such a thing as sub-psychology, I want to pass on some of the things I've noticed about subs that I've learned over the years that might help you some. Subcontractors, and I don't want to stereotype them, however, you will find this true in many cases, subcontractors, The better subs are much like artists. They're artisans. And you can tell when a real artistic sub is on the job as opposed to someone that just kind of knows it by the numbers. And they know how to do it, but they're not a real artist. The problem with the real artisans is they are what I call heavy right brain people. And they are very artistic. However, they are very bohemian. They just go by a different beat of the drum. They may be there tomorrow. They may not be there tomorrow. It just depends on, how the wind's blowing. And if you're a normal 9-to-5 person, this kind of stuff will drive you absolutely crazy. And you have to learn to kind of either live with it or not deal with those kind of artisans. And I tell you what, I really appreciate those great artisans, but they can be difficult to deal with. But they have a different mentality. It's like a carpenter once said, they looked at him and said, "Why do you only work 3 days a week? You're so great. You could just work all the time. Why do you only work 3 days a week?" And he came back and said, "Because I can't get by on 2." And that kind of stuff drives a normal person. Let me pass on just a couple of things about dealing with the subs. First of all, paying on time is very critical. A lot of subs, when they walk on a job site, they'll go up to the other subs and they'll look at them and say, "Hey, how does this guy pay?" They'll kind of feel you out. And if they say, "Oh man, he pays right on time," or "He pays the day you finish in cash," boy, that's great. So paying on time is very, very critical on keeping the subs there, getting the job done. Years ago, we used to recommend subs, and we're going to still do this in our internet program. I want to also tell you in these recommendations, I'm still going to require you to check them out the way we've described here. Because I used to recommend subs and students would call me up and they'd say they use this sub and the sub did a terrible job and they were giving me grief and almost holding me responsible. And what I learned is that a sub will do a good job for a good builder and the same sub will do a bad job for a bad builder. So a lot of the responsibility falls on your shoulders as the builder. So you've got to demand good quality out of that sub. Just don't assume they're going to give it to you, which is another reason you want a good, clean job site. That shows that you're conscientious. You want good quality. Another thing that I've noticed about subs, and I can relate to this, is many of your subs have a very short attention span. And if they get on a job and all the material's not there, or you're not clear on what you want done, and there's just a lot of confusion, pretty soon they get frustrated, and the next thing you know, they're rolling up their cords, getting in their truck, and they're headed to another job. I don't know why they do that, because they come out ahead if they just stay there and sort everything out, but that's just the way they are. So it's going to be very important when a sub shows up that you have good, clear drawings or you have a good, clear understanding of what you want done, that all the material they need is there. And during the time period, you're going to be working for the sub. They don't work for you. And you'll be waiting on them hand and foot, making sure material gets delivered. Whatever they need is there to keep them going. And as long as the jobs flows very smooth, the longer you will keep them there, because their attention span will tend to extend to a longer period of time. I want to mention changes. You will learn in this industry, especially if you become a professional builder, that changes, they will eat your lunch. And these subs, they really detest changes. Now, even though you're going to pay them for the change, They just hate tearing out something they built and redoing it. The changes just upset their schedule. They may have another job they need to get to, and here they're held up by your changes. Those changes are going to cost you an arm and a leg. So you need to be real clear about how you want things before it is done. Now, granted, this is your home. You want it the way you want it. And a lot of times you just can't tell until it's built that it's not exactly what you want. So changes are going to happen. I want to stress, to the best of your ability, minimize those changes because they create a major upset for everybody. I mentioned earlier in the plans that your clarity is your power. And the sooner you can learn to be crystal clear, the more powerful you will become. So here's what I've learned in being clear with the subs. I used to get with a sub and we'd have the drawings and or we were getting ready to do something, and I would verbally explain to the sub what I wanted. And I would always look at the sub and say, "Do you understand?" And the sub would always say, "Yes." And so I would leave because I didn't want to hang out at the job site. I had other things to do. And I would come back and the sub had constructed it wrong or not the way I wanted it. And either I had to live with it or now tear it out and redo it, which I hated to do. And it was a change that I discussed earlier. So here's one thing I've learned to do with subs. I will go over the drawings or I'll go over what I want or a sketch or something. I will tell them exactly what I want. And then I'll look at the sub and say, "Okay, tell me what I just told you." And they'll come back and they'll say, "Well, you want this little wall here to extend out, I think, was it 4 or 5 feet?" And then all of a sudden you realize that they weren't crystal clear. So we'll go over it again. And when the sub can repeat back to me what I told them, then I feel good about leaving the job and everything's going to be okay. Now, this is a little hassle. This is time consuming, but you will be glad that you did it. This is especially true in dealing with your Hispanic crews, because a lot of the Hispanic crews, some of them have, they're still dealing with the English problems and stuff like this. And so you may hire them to just clear like a small area of property, with brush and stuff. And then when you leave, they're such hard workers. I mean, good night. I can't believe how hard they work. But you'll leave, and then when you come back, all of a sudden they've cleared 5 acres. And that's not what you wanted. So you've got to get clear. Another item with these instructions. And this is something I had to learn is I just expect people to do a good job, or I expect them to do what they said they would do. So I'm not quick to give a compliment, but I'm real quick to tell you where you screwed up. And I found that created problems with people, created problems with my staff. So I want you to get in the habit. This is a hard industry. It's either too cold or too hot. It's just tough. I mean, these guys are tough. And they really, really appreciate for you to come on a job site and just compliment them on the good work they're doing. Compliment them on their ability and just say some compliments, and it goes a long ways and just gives them a good feeling of working with you. But if you're just quick to just point out all the mistakes and you never give any compliments, I think over time you're going to pay for that. The last item I want to mention in the subcategory is that of a high maintenance sub. I've had subs. I remember one carpenter in particular. This carpenter was a great carpenter. His prices were great, but all he did was complain nonstop while he was on the job. The material was never good enough. The other subs were always in his way. I mean, he just complained and complained and complained all the time. He made everybody's life miserable, including mine. So I got to where with subs like this, I put in what I call the hassle factor or the high maintenance factor. And it's usually 2 times what their price is. So if I know their price, then I'll multiply it by 2, and that covers their hassle factor. And when I see that hassle factor factored in, then I can't afford that sub. They're too expensive. So these high maintenance subs, I just steer clear of. I love those subs that look at me and say, no problem. Regardless of what I say, no problem. Those are magic words to me in this industry. A couple of closing thoughts about dealing with subs is that dealing with subs is like riding a bucking bronco. The object of a bronco rider is not to learn how to get the horse to stop bucking, it's to learn how to enjoy the ride. Now, if you go into this industry with this mentality that you're going to regiment these guys and make them walk the straight and narrow, let me tell you, you are trying to get the horse to stop bucking, and you are not going to be a happy camper building homes. You're going to wind up with high blood pressure, heart attacks, ulcers, and you're not going to enjoy this business. However, if you can possibly learn to enjoy the ride, let me tell you, this is one heck of a wild, crazy ride that you could have a lot of fun with. This is a wild and woolly industry. It's not like your normal 9-to-5 work. You will never be bored. But unfortunately or fortunately, everyone cannot enjoy the ride. I've had big old strapping guys in my classes. They look like builders, and they can't handle it. They hate it. I've got little bitty grandmothers out there that are building away, and they love every single minute of it because they've learned to enjoy the ride. Last but not least, if you're dealing with a sub or anyone, and your gut feeling is just telling you you don't like that sub or you don't like dealing with them, I want you to listen to that gut feeling and not deal with that sub or really anybody, a builder or anybody you're considering dealing with. Now, you ladies, your intuitive ability it tends to be stronger than the men. But if you're talking with a sub, if you're talking with a builder or anyone, and you just don't have a good feel for that person, I want you to listen to that feeling, and I want you to stay away from them. And you will find that feeling will keep you out of a lot of trouble. The next item we're going to cover will be liens and how to deal with them. Liens are very common in the construction industry. Liens could cause you to pay for something twice. Liens could cause you to lose your home in a foreclosure sale. One thing I want you to do, depending on your area of the country, is possibly hire a local real estate attorney for 1 hour. Now, that'll be an hour well spent. And you can have a list of things you may want to ask them about the construction industry that you're thinking about. But one thing I want you to clarify is how liens are handled in your area, because they change from state to state. But I'm going to give you a general understanding of liens, but 1 hour of an attorney's time. Hopefully you can find an attorney that'll keep the price down to at least maybe $100 an hour or a good lunch or something. I don't know. And just get clear on the issues with liens. Or you can ask, a bunch of dumb questions and maybe figure it out that way. But let me just carry you through a little scenario that kind of explains how the liens generally work. Let's say that I'm the builder of your home and you are the homeowner, and we've got a heating and air sub named Bob. Now, I build your home, Bob installs a heating and air system, and you, the homeowner, pay me all the money. However, I do not pay Bob. And time goes on, I still don't pay Bob for the heating and air system. and he files a lien against your property. Now, you may or may not know that he filed a lien against your property. It depends on where you're located in the country, how your state laws are. And that lien constitutes a cloud on your title. And Bob was able to file that lien. You know, he could go down to the courthouse and for a few bucks, he could do it himself. And that lien constitutes a cloud on your title, and you could now not sell your home because you don't have free or clear title. But you still don't know anything about this. Time goes on, I still don't pay Bob for the heating and air system, and he files a lawsuit against me, and he wins that lawsuit and gets a judgment against me, but I can't pay him because I've gone broke or bankrupt. And you don't know anything about this, possibly. He now sues you, the homeowner. Now you know something's up. And what Bob can do is he could force you to pay that bill. And if you did not pay it, he could force your home into a foreclosure sale and try and collect your money that way. Okay, let's go through it again. You're the homeowner building the home. I'm the builder. Bob's the heating and air sub. You pay me all the money. However, I don't pay Bob. And he goes down to the courthouse and files a lien. Now, in Georgia, he must file that lien within 90 days from the last day he was on the job. Now, he could file a lien after 90 days, but you, the homeowner, and attorney in the process of law could get the lien removed. But he files it within 90 days from the last day he was on the job. Time goes on, I still don't pay him, and he files a lawsuit against me. He must file that lawsuit within 1 year of the date he filed the lien. Now, he can sue me after a year, but he's lost his claim against going against your home. But let's say that Bob sues me within a year. He wins that lawsuit, gets a judgment against me, but I can't pay him because I've gone broke or bankrupt. He can now sue you, the homeowner, and if you don't pay that bill, he could force your home into a foreclosure sale and try and collect his money that way. Okay, let's add a little twist to it. I'm a builder building a home for you, the homeowner. Bob's the heating and air sub. You pay me all the money, and upon paying me at least that last major check, you have me sign an affidavit stating I've paid for all material and labor. But I don't pay Bob the heating and air sub. And time goes on, he files a lien against your property within 90 days. Time goes on, he files a lawsuit against me within a year. He wins that lawsuit, but I can't pay him because I've gone broke or bankrupt. He now turns to you and you hold up that affidavit. Now, you may not stop him from going against your home, but as a general rule, that will stop him in his tracks temporarily. It may not stop him forever. But what you can do is you can have me, the builder, locked up immediately, and I will be charged with the felony 1 to 5 years in prison. And being locked up immediately will probably inspire me to get that heating and air sub paid as soon as possible. That is a very big stick. I had a friend that went to prison over these things right here. Okay, let's add a little twist to it. You're the homeowner building a home. I'm the builder. Bob's the heating and air sub. You pay me all the money, and you have me sign an affidavit stating I paid for all my material labor. This time, I pay Bob. And when I pay Bob, I have him sign an affidavit that he's paid for all material and labor. But Bob doesn't pay the manufacturer of that heating and air unit. Bob, you sorry rascal. And time goes on, he still doesn't pay him, and they file a lien against your property within 90 days. They file a lawsuit against Bob within a year. They win that lawsuit, get a judgment against Bob. They now turn to you, the homeowner. You hold up your builder's affidavit. They now turn to me, the builder. I hold up my subcontractor's affidavit. Now Bob is the one in the hot seat that could go to jail. I want you to treat all the subs just like the banks treat us. See, the banks are not going to give you money without you signing an affidavit. You paid for everybody. But I want you to treat all the subs just like the banks treat us. You want this check? You sign this affidavit. If they don't sign the affidavit, they don't get the check. No ticky, no washy. Real simple. Let me just throw a couple of things at you about the liens. And reality, like in Georgia, a sub or supplier doesn't have to get a lawsuit and a judgment before they can necessarily go after the homeowner. Many times, if they sue against a lien, they'll sue the builder and the homeowner at the same time to expedite matters. So they don't have to do one and then the other necessarily. They'll sue us all at the same time. Another thing about the liens in many states, if it's not notarized, if it's just witnessed, it's a misdemeanor up to 1 year in jail. If it's notarized, it's a felony up to 5 years in jail. So give your subs a couple of blank lien waivers. You can see some samples of this at 24/7. Tell the sub to go by someplace and have it notarized, if possible, and they'll bring that blank and you'll fill it out. Or if you need to, just on payday, go somewhere where you can get it notarized. And don't just get a lien at the very tail end of the job. Every time you write a check, you get a lien release to cover that portion of the work, because you may pay a sub and then all of a sudden they take off and they never finish the job. So the lien is for partial payments. It's not just you get it at the very end. It can be for partial payments. Another thing, especially if you're building, is some of these subs may do a terrible job and you refuse to pay them, and they come back and say, well, I'm going to lien the job. And when they tell me that, I say, go ahead. We'll go to court over it. So they think they're being a little smarty by liening the job, thinking they're putting a cloud on the title. And by the way, don't just go file liens for the fun of it. That can get you in serious trouble if you're filing liens just to tie up someone's title and it's not a valid claim. But in the case of the sub where they did work and I didn't pay them because of poor quality work, if they want to lien the job, then they've got to sue me within a year. And in their heart of hearts, they know they're not going to hire an attorney to sue me, because in their heart of hearts, they know they did a poor quality job. But they may file a lien up there thinking they're going to hold up my closing and I'll be forced to pay them. No. What you can do is you can bond out the lien. You'll put up what they require in many places, a cash bond, and they will set the lien aside, give you free and clear title to the real estate so you can sell it or close on a permanent loan or whatever you need to do. And then you'll wait out the time period. In Georgia, it's a year. And if the sub doesn't file a lawsuit, then the bond is released back to you within a year. If they don't file a lawsuit within a year. If they file a lawsuit, then you go to court. Whoever wins the case is paid from the bond. But if a sub wants to play that game that they're going to tie me up by filing a lien, they got another thing coming. I'll bond out the lien, give me free and clear title to the property to sell it, do whatever I need to do with it, and we'll go to court it, and I'll just wait on them to sue me if they think they're right. If they're not right, they're not going to hire an attorney to sue you. I will say, if you fire someone or you are refusing to pay because of poor quality work, I want you to document why you're firing them. Take photographs or videos or whatever you need to do to show the poor quality work before you tear it out and replace it. so that if it does turn into any kind of lien and lawsuit, then you've got evidence you can take to court.